Welcome back. We are looking at the third physical school, which is the Scoundrel school. Scoundrel is mainly the school that focuses on burst damage and backstabbing slash melee accuracy damage. Most of the skills here are for a two-hand fighting rogue, but some of them are still feasible and can be used with other builds together. Probably the Scoundrel, the Scoundrel school itself is most often abused or used in a different way than it was originally thought. Its passive bonus, which increases the chance to critical strike, is very often used in mage builds in order to maximize the damage of the very slow cooldowns of the spells. So um, if you're playing a mage build, look into the Scoundrel school as maybe your second, instead of Huntsman, as maybe your second school that you'd like to maximize. Specifically, Pyromancy and Hydromancy benefit a lot from high crits and can deal incredible amounts of short-term damage if you're even running mods that reduce the cooldowns. Then this is probably a must-have because you are getting rid of the enemy's magic armor extremely fast. However, there is a nice little build that solely focuses on this, which is the classical rogue, the Backstabber, using two daggers and basically trying to dish out as much damage as possible. Why is that one of the schools that, or one of the builds that is most used at the moment? The whole idea behind it is to immediately erase one enemy from the battlefield. The way that Divinity Original Sin 2 works is that damage is most often superior to any other form of playstyle. So unless you know exactly what you're doing in terms of positioning and in terms of encounter, the vast majorities of all encounters can be easily won by taking out the high threat targets first. And the way that it works with Scoundrel is that Scoundrel will basically try to get as many action points in one action to actually kill one of the enemies and then hopefully either get teleported out or get invisible. So if you're playing a rogue, often it is a clever idea to get a way out. So either have a teammate ready to teleport you out, or have some sort of invisibility, or play an undead character that can feign death. So all of that would work. And let's go through the abilities, through the noticeable ones that I would recommend a lot. Adrenaline, first and foremost, is probably the #1 ability that is usable for many of the builds. Adrenaline is extremely strong. It lets you gain 2 action points immediately, but you lose the 2 action points in the next round. So it's exactly the borrowing of power, of future power, in order to have a burst damage. That can be used with any damage dealing build, so to speak, but it is probably most prevalent with either archer builds or rogue builds, because it just gives you that extra oomph when you need it. So that is definitely a very, very strong ability. You can be sure, if you want to do a dagger-based build, you need to have a cloak and dagger as to reposition at the right time, respectively have throwing knives, which is also a strong skill for a rogue, to make sure that you can deal damage even from a distance. So the cloak and dagger ability and the throwing knife are 2 of the abilities that I highly, highly recommend as well. The core of the build, however, is the backlash ability, which lets you jump over an enemy and land behind it. Couple of words of advice for those of you who start the game. Backlash will not always let you land behind the enemy if the terrain behind it is blocked or kind of barraged by a friendly unit. You are unfortunately teleported to the side, and backstabs, which multiply the damage of daggers, will only work if you're behind the target. So you need a little bit of coordination in some, let's say, experience, but backlash therefore would be like your number one skill. And that's really about it. It gets stronger from here, but there is nothing that is like terribly outstanding, because you will still continue with the core abilities. There will be a couple of extra damaging abilities, but the core of the build is already there. Let me notice, however, that Scoundrel is a build that by itself is either support for other builds, or if you go into Scoundrel, you will rely on Warfare as your first ability to maximize, and you are well advised to combine this school also with Polymorph, that I'm going to talk through later, to get some more movement abilities. And that is really it. We're now moving next to the caster skills, and then we're going to the neutral skills.